My name is...
The back.
Eh? No, I want to
say. Oh, action.
My name is Luca Biniat. I am basically a conflict reporter, and I write for Truth Nigeria. Where I am right now, it's a village, once very prosperous village, that belonged to the Adara ethnic nationality, who are basically Christians. The name of this place is called Kujeni, and is in Kajuru County in Kaduna State. This place is part of the Middle Belt because they identify as the ethnic Christians of northern Nigeria, fall in the Middle Belt. It is impossible to imagine the life that was here. These people have been living here peacefully for centuries, and around me, though you could see some ruins still standing, this used to be a very dense community, highly populated with schools, with churches, with playgrounds, and everything that will make a village community happy. But today, you won't believe that there were ever structures here. What the villagers do now, after they have been chased out severally, until they could no longer hold to defend themselves, they had to leave the village. The ones that you may be seeing around just come around to tend to the farm produce that they farmed during the rainy season. Luckily for them, the Fulani herdsmen, who have been their perpetual tormentors, have not eaten up these crops like we have seen in other places. This Kujeni is about 80 miles southwest of Kaduna metropolis. It is now an empty space, and it's not only this place. Coming here is quite a big security challenge. We had to pass through a lot of military checkpoints on the way, and we had to persuade them to leave us. But apart from that, there are many other communities. In fact, from what have been listed to us, there are over 52 of these communities, and they include Kujeni Dutse, Kwakwari, Kakuku, Ongwom Puda, Ongwom Madaki, Ongwom Barde. I've been to Ongwom Barde. It was the first place that the Fulanis launched attack in 2019 and killed 11 people. The place has been sacked now. There's also Gindingada, there is Itisi, there is even Ivana Turu, among many others. These are largely Christian communities that have been displaced. We heard that, of course, it's true, that the governor of Kaduna State, Ubasani, had granted these bandits, these Fulani herdsmen, the armed militia of the Fulani wing, what he calls state pardon and amnesty, and in fact integrated them into society by rehabilitating them, including complete Medicare for the repentant, so-called repentant bandits. But as villagers will tell us, there is nothing like repentance among them because they have not been able to return to their homes. Almost 2 years since Governor Basani granted them that amnesty. So the villagers are very excited with the announcement by Trump that Nigeria is now a country of concern. So I have come here to make on-the-spot assessment if it is true what government have been claiming, that the amnesty granted the bandits has resulted to the return of displaced villagers. There is nothing like that. There is no welfare for them. There is still no sufficient security for them. In fact, as we go around, you'll be hearing it from the horses' mouth themselves. Let us move.
In many parts of the world, the experience of conflict is not merely a moment in time but an ongoing reality, shaped by layers of history, governance, community resilience, and the way narratives emerge from the voices of those who witness events directly. As tension, displacement, and uncertainty affect different regions, observers, analysts, and conflict reporters continually attempt to make sense of what is happening on the ground. This script examines the statements made by conflict reporter Luca Biniat and the villagers he references, focusing on their claims, their lived experience, and the broader contextual questions these claims raise about security, rehabilitation policies, and government responses. All descriptions in this narration remain tied to the reported statements and testimonies, as this analysis seeks not to validate any particular accusation, but to understand the dynamics at play, the implications of policy decisions, and the human experiences that sit at the center of these debates. For viewers following along, feel free to subscribe, comment thoughtfully, and share your perspectives as we unpack these complex narratives with care, balance, and respect for all involved. According to the account provided by the reporter, he stands in a village once described as prosperous, situated within Kaduna State and belonging to the Adora ethnic nationality. His emphasis on their Christian identity reflects the way this community self-identifies socially, culturally, and religiously, especially within the broader context of Nigeria's Middle Belt, where questions of identity often carry historical and political weight. The reporter's tone suggests an attempt to bring attention to the profound transformation of the area, describing a village that once contained dense settlements, structures, and the rhythms of everyday life that anchor communities across generations. What stands out in his testimony is not only the physical devastation but also the psychological and emotional emptiness that accompanies returning to a place where homes no longer stand and familiar voices have been replaced by silence. As the narration continues, the reporter claims that recurring incidents of violence attributed to armed groups, whom he refers to as Fulani headsmen or bandits, forced residents to flee repeatedly until they could no longer defend their homes. It is crucial in an objective analysis to distinguish between allegations made by individuals and the broader factual record, especially in cases where specific groups are named. Nigeria's complex security landscape involves multiple actors, and official reports often emphasize that criminality, banditry, and violence do not neatly align with one ethnic group or profession. Therefore, while the villagers describe their attackers in a particular way, this analysis treats their words as testimonies rather than confirmed identities of perpetrators. This framing helps maintain neutrality and ensures the conversation remains respectful and responsible, especially on a public platform where clarity and care are essential. The villagers, according to the reporter, still return occasionally to tend to the crops they planted during the rainy season. Their relationship to the land remains strong even amid displacement, suggesting a profound connection between people and their ancestral environment. Agriculture, for many communities, is not only a means of survival but also a cultural practice, a form of autonomy, and an expression of dignity. The reporter notes that the crops have not been destroyed, an unexpected outcome when compared with testimonies from other communities who claim that farmland destruction occurred in different locations. These differences raise important questions about the patterns of destruction, the factors influencing which communities experience damage and which do not, and the degree to which returning residents feel any sense of safety, however temporary or fragile. As the reporter describes their journey into the region, he mentions passing through numerous military checkpoints. This is a significant detail because it highlights the degree of securitization in certain rural areas, especially those that have experienced repeated attacks or displacement. Military checkpoints, while intended to maintain order and deter violence, also symbolize the gravity of the security situation and the level of state involvement required to oversee movement and protect lives. The reporter's account of persuading security personnel to allow them passage reflects the layered complexities surrounding civilian access to sensitive areas and the responsibility placed on security forces to control risk. These observations can generate broader discussion points about the balance between security precautions and community accessibility, a topic that deserves thoughtful commentary from viewers interested in governance, conflict management, and human mobility in regions affected by ongoing threats. Throughout his narration, the reporter lists multiple communities, over 52, according to the villagers, said to have been affected by displacement, including names such as Kujini, Kujenidut, Kwakwori, Kakuku, Nkwamkuda, Nkwomodoki, Nkwombad, Jindingada, Ivonaturo, and others. Listing these names serves several purposes. It memorializes places that residents fear may fade from collective memory. It provides geographic reference points for external observers seeking to understand the spread of reported events, and it shows the extent to which localized incidents accumulate into a regional humanitarian issue. When individual communities articulate similar experiences, analysts often attempt to identify cross-cutting themes that can be verified independently. For viewers, this raises important questions about how displacement statistics are collected, how governments and humanitarian groups confirm which communities are affected, and what the long-term implications are for regions where many settlements are abandoned or sparsely inhabited. One of the central points in the testimony revolves around the reported amnesty program attributed to Governor Yuba Sani and his administration. According to the reporter, villagers claim the state government granted pardon to armed individuals described as bandits, integrating some into society through rehabilitation and welfare packages. The reporter notes that the authorities reportedly provided medical care and support to these individuals, framed as repentant by official channels. It is important to approach such claims with analytical distance. Rehabilitation programs exist in many countries, often aimed at reducing violence, reintegrating former offenders, and encouraging behavioral transformation. Whether or not such programs succeed varies widely based on implementation, participant motivation, oversight mechanisms, and social context. Therefore, an objective analysis must consider the program within a spectrum of global practices while recognizing that local testimonies may express strong opinions about its effectiveness or fairness. The villagers' statements, as reported, challenge the idea that the individuals granted amnesty have genuinely repented or abandoned violent behavior. They argue that 2 years after the policy was implemented, they have not been able to return to their homes nor seen improved security conditions that would allow resettlement. From an analytical standpoint, such claims highlight a recurring tension in conflict-affected regions, the contrast between policy intentions and perceived outcomes. Rehabilitation programs are often forward-looking, seeking to interrupt cycles of violence by offering alternatives. Meanwhile, displaced communities frequently focus on immediate needs such as safety, shelter, justice, and the restoration of livelihoods. When the gap between these two priorities widens, frustration can grow, especially if affected communities feel unheard or unsupported. Viewers are encouraged to share their reflections in the comments in a constructive and respectful manner, helping to expand public understanding of how policies are interpreted differently across various groups. Beyond this policy debate, the villagers reportedly express optimism regarding international attention. According to the reporter, they reacted with enthusiasm to an announcement that former U.S. President Donald Trump had identified Nigeria as a country of concern in a statement. Again, this is presented as the villagers' reaction, not an endorsement of any geopolitical viewpoint. The villagers interpret this external attention as an opportunity for their plight to be acknowledged on a global stage. The symbolic weight of international recognition often resonates deeply with communities affected by violence or displacement, serving as validation that their experiences matter and are not invisible. For analysts, such reactions reveal the emotional dimensions of global politics and how local populations perceive high-profile statements from international figures. Whether or not such statements translate into concrete change is a separate and complex question, but the psychological effect on communities is still noteworthy. As the reporter moves through the region, he emphasizes that his goal is to verify whether the government's earlier claims that the amnesty program resulted in displaced villagers returning home reflect the lived reality on the ground. According to his narration, he found no evidence of large-scale returns or significant resettlement activity in the communities he visited. Instead, he describes scenes of abandonment, temporary visits for famine, and ongoing fear. Again, objectivity requires acknowledging that one reporter's site visit cannot serve as definitive proof of statewide conditions. Conditions may vary from one area to another, and official institutions often track resettlement through broader datasets and multiple agencies. However, the reporter's observations represent an important qualitative data point, one that invites further investigation, cross-checking, and discussion. For creators and viewers engaged in civic analysis, this is a moment to reflect on the value of journalism, the importance of field reporting, and the need for transparency from all sides. As we reflect on part 1 of this analysis, consider subscribing to stay connected as we continue unpacking different dimensions of the story, diving deeper into regional dynamics, lived experiences, government policies, and the broader implications for peace and security. Your questions and insights in the comments help create a richer and more thoughtful conversation around these issues.